Hi everyone, welcome to the Whiteleyverse with me, Connor Whiteley, for another daily short story. Now, before I start today's story, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to buy this short story and any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers and at your local bookstore and local library if you requested, and you can order paperback copies from Amazon. Now, here's today's short story. I hope you enjoyed just as much as I did writing it.
Loving the Christmas Florist. The 18th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. You've seriously outdone yourself this holiday season. Florist Freddie Stewart just smiled to himself as his mum came into his large, perfectly clean, refreshing florist shop. She was wearing her normal flowery dress with massive fake blue poinsettias on the loose, airy material. Freddie had never really liked the dress because it was flat out impossible for poinsettias to be blue, but it made his mum happy, so he didn't mind too much. His mum had her long brown hair tied up in a bun, and her black handbag, designer of course, provided a great contrast to the dress. And the store for that matter. It always impressed Freddie how his mum just always knew what to wear to stand out like a sore thumb in his florist shop. He made sure the long white sterile walls of the stores that stretched to the very back of the store were covered in bright colors like oranges, reds and yellows. Then he softened the harsh bright colors with other softer flowers and branches and leaves. Freddie had made sure to even keep the soft, fluffy cream carpet of the store subtle and neutral, so everyone would focus on the flowers instead of him and any other customer. Freddie even kept the 4 glass counters in each corner of the store perfectly see-through, so no one noticed them. He loved those counters where his employees worked on arrangements, making their various orders with their fast, entertaining craft to wow customers into ordering their own creations. It was brilliant to see customers' faces light up. "Oh, you've got more fir and pine since I last saw you," his mum said, grinning. "Yeah, I got a delivery last night," Freddie said. He had always loved how fir and pine worked together perfectly to create an instant Christmassy scent that everyone loved. And thankfully, it seemed to make customers order even more Christmas flower arrangements. Hardly a bad thing at all. He had worked so hard to make this store a symphony for the senses that he almost wanted to laugh whenever his mum came in, because if another customer came in, they would focus on his mum, simply because she looked so out of place. Thankfully, it was coming up to 5 p.m., so most of the customers had already gone home with their goodies. Freddie flat out loved making Christmas flower arrangements, and as his mum came over to the one he was working on, he had to agree it did look great. As the customer, Mr. Charlie Ball, lived in the countryside, Freddie had created the flower design in a large clay vase with an aged look. Then he had carefully used real poinsettias with their beautiful red and green vibrancy to evoke the spirit of Christmas. He had added a few red berries and holly leaves in the front of the arrangement, because he wanted the arrangement to symbolize joy and goodwill. From what he had heard about Charlie Ball and the way his business was going, he needed it. He had wanted to ask his mum more questions, but she didn't want to say anything. Yet now he wanted to. Freddie had wanted to add a single Christmas rose to the arrangement. He flat out loved these beautiful, amazing flowers that came in shades of pink, white and burgundy. They were always perfect for Christmas, and added a nice contrast in color against the traditional red and green. Then he finished it all off with delightful branches and twigs of pine, cedar and spruce that made the store smell heavenly and just like Christmas. Freddie normally brought pine twigs en masse so he could just sell them without flowers. Everyone needed some Christmas joy and smells, and pine just managed to do that perfectly. "Mum, what's going on with Charlie Ball?" Freddie asked. "I have to deliver this to him later on, and I want to know if I'm walking into something." Freddie had no idea if that was actually why he wanted to know, but Charles lived on the outskirts of Canterbury, surrounded by woodlands. He had no idea why someone wanted to live there of all places, and he was curious. "Charlie is a sweetheart. He's a woodworker and creates wonderful things, but he's going through a rough patch. His business isn't doing well, so that's why I put the order in for him," his mom said. Freddie just looked at his mom. He was sure that the name on the order form was Charlie Ball himself, and the money came from Charlie, not his mom. He realized that any of his 4 employees that he had let go home earlier today could have changed the order forms on the request of his mom. He had been paid anyway, and the arrangement was done, so Freddie supposed he had to deliver it. "Please don't do this again," Freddie said, picking up the clay vase and heading towards the door. "I won't, darling, but you'll be grateful that I did," his mom said, giving Freddie a kiss on the cheek before she left so he could lock up. And as Freddie went along the cobblestone road towards his little black Fiat, he had a feeling that a surprise flower arrangement was going to seriously backfire or go seriously well. He had no idea what Charlie Ball would be like. But he was about to find out, and he was about to find out more than ever could have wished for. The 18th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. Woodcrafter Charlie Ball folded his arms and admired his large workshop inside his old converted van with newly fitted wooden log cabin-style walls packed full of insulation, a massive handcrafted wooden sliding door that looked like it was right out of a fantasy novel, and massive metal cabinets filled with more tools, designs, and drawings than Charlie knew what to do with lined the walls. The smell of sawdust, pine, and cedar filled the workshop, and Charlie loved the wonderful smell. It was a great mixture of hard work and Christmas, and all the joy he was hoping to spread this holiday season. The icy coldness of the countryside seeping into the converted barn made Charlie shiver a little, and he stomped his feet down on the sawdust-covered ground, making the Christmassy smell of pine get even more intense for a moment. Charlie paced around the workshop for a few moments, admiring the long shelf he had made run all around the ceiling of the workshop. It was filled with some of his favorite creations. He had loved crafting the wooden dolls, Santas, and elves. He could spread so much joy with them, and he normally donated 1 or 2 of the best ones to the homeless people around Canterbury. It made them smile at a time of year when they didn't have much to smile about. He knew the feeling. He wasn't so sure how much joy he would be spreading this year, as he looked at the massive sleigh in the middle of his workshop. He had managed to get the basic shape right, and he had managed to get the wood smooth, detailed, and he really liked the handcrafted elves in the woodwork. But it was missing something major. He just didn't know what. It was even better he had managed to make the sleigh look like it was made from a single massive block of wood, instead of the various lengths and thicknesses of pine he had been skillfully crafting for the past month, amongst smaller, faster projects that he sold at weekends at Christmas markets. Again, even the Christmas markets were down this year. He was only making half of what he was last year, and he sold out completely during the first Christmas market. He had liked the smiles on people's faces, the laughter of children as they played with their new toys, and he had liked seeing the cute men around. But he had been to 5 Christmas markets so far this year, and he had still barely sold half of his inventory. He had managed to figure he had enough money to last him through to the new year, but after that, things were looking tight. He might even have to go back to his father's business in accounting. Charlie shivered. He hated the idea of seeing his father's big, silly grin on his face. He had always called Charlie stupid, dumb, and silly for wanting to become a woodworker compared to making hundreds of thousands of pounds each year in accounting. Charlie liked working with his hands, he liked spreading joy, and whilst he was good at numbers, he liked making people smile. That was what he wanted to do with his life. He didn't want to crunch numbers for soulless corporations that were robbing people blind. It was why he only ever saw his parents on Christmas morning. He could only stomach them for a few hours at most. Their record was 2 hours before they started berating, criticizing, and planning his life for him. Charlie just wanted to live his own life and do what he wanted, all whilst making people happy along the way. He went over to the sleigh and ran a hand over the perfectly smooth wood. He just couldn't work out what it needed. He was making this for the Canterbury Christmas Eve parade, a brand new major event that could save his business. People from all over Kent were coming to the Canterbury parade, so there would be tens of thousands of potential customers for him to sell to, advertise to, and he could spread a lot of joy. That would only happen if he could figure out what was wrong with the sleigh. He supposed it could have been because of the lack of paint, but he had worked on projects where the missing thing was paint, and those projects felt different. This feeling was like there was something seriously wrong with the sleigh. Charlie couldn't understand why he felt like that because it was a good sleigh. It was like all the other smaller ones he had made over the years for kids, families, and other charities. There was nothing physically wrong with this sleigh. Charlie shrugged. Maybe he was the problem. Maybe he wanted to create something new, exciting, and unique, but he didn't have the inspiration for it. He realized that was the problem and someone banged on his front door. He rolled his eyes and just hoped this distraction could inspire him. Little did he realize just how true that hope was. The 18th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. As Freddie stood outside the massive converted barn with its bright white, red and green planks that were artfully painted to make the barn an artwork in its own right, he was seriously shocked by the door. It was clearly a large sliding door, but it was perfect and stunning and beautiful. He had never seen detailed little carvings in wood before, especially on a front door twice the height of him. There were little carvings of elves, Santas, and arches. Freddie could see the little strays of hair, the little buttons on Santa's suit, and even the frayed ribbons of some of the presents in the sleigh. This was breathtaking. Freddie held the Christmas arrangement in his hand, and he wished he had brought gloves now. The icy coldness of the countryside was bad enough, let alone how the clay vase was chilling his skin. Freezer burn was the last thing Freddie wanted, but outside it felt like a real possibility. Freddie kicked the front door again, almost feeling bad he was basically defacing a beautiful piece of art. He could see bright lights inside through the windows at the top of the barn, so someone was clearly in. He just wanted them to hurry up and let him in before his fingers fell off. A moment later the front door slid open. Freddie shot inside without being invited in, and the front door shut behind him. He looked at the person who had let him in, and... Jesus Christ! Freddie's mouth dropped. His wayward parts flared to life. His mind melted for a moment. He couldn't help but stare at the utterly gorgeous man standing in front of him. It was only now Freddie realized how much he liked broad shoulders, and he could see the man's large biceps under his red and black checkered jumper, and his longish brown hair framed his cute oval face perfectly. His face might not have been chiseled with a strong jawline and high cheekbones, but Freddie didn't want to stop looking at his deep emerald eyes that had such a kindness to them that surprised Freddie. It was rare to see someone who seemed that kind in this day and age. He was beyond gorgeous. "Hi," Freddie said, forcing out the words. "Are you Charlie Ball?" The gorgeous man grinned, and Freddie almost had a heart attack. No man should ever have a smile that perfect and that sensational. "Yes, but I'm afraid I didn't order any flowers." Freddie smiled. "About that, well, my mom ordered these flowers for you via my florist store. She's paid for them and I'm hoping you would like them." Freddie was surprised at himself. He normally never ever asked clients to like them, because he was confident in his craftsmanship. It was difficult to create a stunning arrangement of flowers that he used to suffer with such self-doubt that he couldn't work some days. Now he just trusted himself without a second thought. Freddie really didn't like the effect Charlie was having on him, even more so as his wayward part stood even straighter. "They're stunning," Charlie said, grinning and inspecting the flowers. "I'm sorry, I don't know much about flowers, but I like the colors. I like the contrast of the red, green, and pink, and the different heights and textures are nice too." Freddie laughed. For someone who claims not to know much about flowers, that's probably one of the most detailed descriptions I've had for ages, and outside of Kensington in London. "Wow, you delivered to those people." Freddie nodded. He always loved that the posh, rich power couples up in London paid for him to travel up there and deliver fresh flower arrangements every 2 weeks like clockwork. It was why he had originally started hiring employees. "Are you famous or something?" Charlie asked, grinning. Freddie shrugged. "I'm not sure about famous, but if people can afford stunning arrangements, then they contact me first. And if I'm too busy, then I recommend them to one of my competitors. I'm not going to rob someone of having flowers just because I technically lose the money. That's a great attitude to have. Freddie couldn't believe how refreshing it was to talk to someone who wasn't obsessed with spreadsheets, money, and making sure that his store was the only florist store that survived the harsh winter. As far as Freddie was concerned, he was only successful if the rest of the Kentish florist industry survived. It was about the flower growers, the drivers, and all the other people who worked and benefited beyond the store and behind the scenes. It was great that Charlie seemed to understand that. Charlie took the clay vase, and Freddie's smile grew even more when their hands briefly touched, and Freddie loved the warmth, attraction, and chemistry that flowed between them. Freddie so badly wanted to keep their hands touching, but he let go of the vase. And as Charlie went over to put the clay vase on a workbench, Freddie just stared at that wonderful ass. Charlie turned around, and Freddie looked away and focused on the beautiful sleigh in the workshop. He went over to it, and he had no idea how gifted Charlie was, or how the hell he had even managed this. He couldn't see any seams, any lumps or dents in the wood. The entire sleigh looked almost magical with the little carvings, stunning craftsmanship, and how it looked like it was made out of a single block of wood. It could have been made from the trunk of a pine tree in Lapland on Santa's estate. The sleigh was that good. Then Freddie looked back at Charlie, and he was frowning at the sleigh. It made no sense considering how great it was, and Freddie noticed all the impressive wooden dolls, Santas, and elves on the shelf near the ceiling. Charlie was a hell of a woodworker. "What's wrong?" Freddie asked. "The sleigh looks amazing." Charlie shrugged. "Honestly, my business isn't doing that great, and I need to get this right or I might have to shut down in the new year. This sleigh's for the Canterbury Parade on Christmas Eve, and it needs to be perfect." "Oh cool," Freddie said. "I'm also selling flower arrangements there. It should be a great event. There should be over 30,000 people." "Exactly, that's why I need the parade to go perfectly. Otherwise I can't get the advertising for my business, and I'm going to have to shut down." Freddie bit his lower lip. That was a hell of a problem, and there had been a few close calls with his florist store over the years, and he knew how painful, awful, and foul the close calls were. He could only begin to imagine how bad Charlie felt about having to close in basically 2 weeks. There wasn't a lot of time to save the day or save anything. But Freddie refused to let such a kind, gorgeous, and understanding man lose what he loved without a fight. He was going to help Charlie no matter what. Freddie placed his hands on his hips and looked into Charlie's wonderfully deep emerald eyes. "Let's solve this together." The 18th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. Charlie had no idea what he had done to deserve Freddie's kindness, but he was more than glad he had it. He was still in awe of how cute, perfect, and attractive Freddie was with his short body, short dirty blonde hair, and his smile just lit up the entire workshop. Freddie looked even more attractive in his tight dark blue jeans, red tight-fitting hoodie that highlighted how lean and fit his body was, and all Charlie wanted to do was hug him and feel Freddie's body against his. He had no idea why he was so attracted to Freddie. He was never normally like this. It normally took him a few times of seeing someone before he remotely realized he was attracted to them, but clearly Freddie was different. In all the right ways. And as much as Charlie tried not to notice, he couldn't help but smile at the perfectly straight line pressing against Freddie's jeans. He was cute and liked him back, something Charlie was more than happy with. But Charlie didn't want to get into a relationship right now, not with the business at stake, and even if they did start a relationship, it wouldn't work out. Charlie would be unemployed, scrambling to find a job, and Freddie was probably the type of wonderfully kind guy who would give him money. Charlie didn't want to start off a relationship like that. It wasn't fair on either of them. "I don't know how woodwork goes, but normally when I'm stuck on a flower arrangement, it's because there's a color missing." Charlie smiled at the beautifully fit florist standing next to him. He was really cute. Charlie paced around the sleigh a few times. The Canterbury Parade Committee had specifically asked for it to be painted red with gold highlights on the rails and other metal finishes. He wasn't sure if he wanted to do that, but the committee hadn't given him many rules, so he wanted to respect them at the very least. "I'm not allowed to paint it any other color than gold and red," Charlie said, hating every word as he said that. "I get that, and I think a traditional sleigh looks great like that," Freddie said, seeing how much Charlie hated each word. "But they hired you because you're a great woodworker. How would you paint it?" Charlie smiled as he looked at the sleigh with its smooth edges, seamless design, and he wanted to paint it right now as a surge of excitement flowed through him. He went over to Freddie, went behind him and lifted up Freddie's right hand so Freddie could see exactly what he was gesturing to. Charlie flat out loved the feeling of Freddie's smooth skin, warm body, and his delightfully Christmassy aftershave. Charlie's own wayward part sprung to life. "I would keep everything the same as the rules, but I would go further. You see that front piece of the sleigh? I would add some sort of weathering effect to make it more realistic and real." Charlie grinned even more as he realized that was exactly what he wanted. He wanted the sleigh to look even more realistic, and like Santa had actually ridden it all over the world for hundreds of years, without it looking tacky and damaged and awful. It was all very doable. "That sounds brilliant," Freddie said. Charlie loved the edge of wonder, awe and excitement in his wonderful voice. He liked that Freddie was a visionary and just as creative as him. Maybe something might be possible in the future, after they saw each other a few more times. Charlie guided Freddie's soft hand over to the side of the sleigh. Then on the sides, because they wouldn't be hit by the wind as much as the front, I would do copper highlights to make it sparkle and add a little more texture and depth. "You make woodwork sound like flower arranging," Freddie said, smiling. "Of course it is," Charlie said. He let go of Freddie's soft hand and spun him around and gently placed his hands on Freddie's skinny shoulders. "Of course woodwork is the same as flower arranging. We are artists trying to convey our imagination into a physical form that others will desire, be stunned by, and they will experience joy." Freddie placed his hands on Charlie's waist and involuntarily laughed. Freddie's delicate fingers felt so good through his clothing. Charlie really didn't want tonight to end. He just liked having someone to talk to, who understood what creating stunning things was like. His friends and family tried to understand, but it took another artist to truly understand. "What would you do to the back?" Freddie asked, knowing how much Charlie liked talking to another artist. "If this was me, I would add something slightly different that didn't detract from the rest, but added a pop. It's why I added Christmas roses to your arrangement." Charlie clicked his fingers, and he wanted to see what Freddie meant in the arrangement, but he didn't want to look away. He didn't want to do anything else but look at Freddie's cute, beautiful face and body, and feel his fit body against his own. This was a perfect moment. Two artists together, a florist and a woodworker. And as much as Charlie didn't want to admit it, there was something oddly perfect about it. He always thought he would want to date a manly man who worked with his hands building things like him, but no. He really liked a short, cute, beautiful man that worked his hands in different ways to make awe-inspiring flower arrangements for people. They both made different things, but they both spread joy to others. That was more than enough for Charlie, and he was more than grateful that Freddie had helped him realize what he needed to do to make the sleigh perfect. And Charlie tried not to consider it, but he couldn't stop thinking and wondering and hoping for a future with Freddie. He would always try to play the friends cards like he normally did with other men, but Freddie was different. Freddie was special. It wasn't because Freddie was lean, fit and cute. It was so much more than that. Freddie was clever, intelligent, and he was a true artist. Someone he could talk to, relate to and bond with about what he loved. Something Charlie had wanted all his life. Now he just hoped the sleigh and Freddie would be enough to save his business. The 24th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. It was almost midnight when the parade ended. All the happy, smiling and laughing families and university students had gone home, and everyone finished packing up. Freddie pulled his thick black coat a little tighter, as the icy coldness of the December night seeped into his clothing. He leant against the large boot of his black Land Rover, the vehicle he always used on events, in the middle of the near-empty cobblestone car park on the outskirts of Canterbury. The rich aromas of mulled wine, pine and fir filled the car park, and Freddie just grinned. There wasn't a better smell in the world, and it made the taste of warm, freshly baked Christmas cake form on his tongue. He was so looking forward to his mum's Christmas feast tomorrow, where he could see his brother and 3 nephews and 2 nieces. It was going to be a great day. The entire evening and night had been wonderful. Freddie was glad how quickly he had sold out, and earned more than enough money to see him through the entire winter and most of spring. He had never seen so many smiling young couples, families and elderly grandmothers before. They only had to look at his arrangements to smile, and then they wanted one for their table tomorrow. Freddie was only too happy to sell the arrangements to them, and help spread a little extra joy. There was a particular gay couple that Freddie really liked. 2 young university students, both wearing matching dark blue jeans and black shirts. They looked great, and they were so romantic and happy, and they were sure it would be perfect for their Christmas meal tomorrow. And Freddie was sure that extra joyous and romantic moment was only possible because of the flowers. That was why he loved them. The parade was brilliant with so many floats, vehicles and groups, dancing and singing and spreading Christmas cheer. Freddie really liked the over 50 movers, in their bright red jumpsuits, that were dancing like their lives depended on it to various Christmas tunes as they went past. They were just brilliant, funny, and it was impossible not to smile at them. Freddie hoped he could move like them when he was their age. Charlie's sleigh was still the crown jewel. Freddie couldn't help but smile at the memory of seeing that wonderfully handcrafted sleigh that looked so real, so angelic and so perfect go down Canterbury High Street. The red and gold worked nice enough, so Freddie was shocked at the great little details that Charlie had added. The sleigh was the talk of the parade. Something Freddie couldn't have been happier about. Hopefully it would be enough to save Charlie's business. They hadn't exactly spoken much for the past few days, and Freddie had tried to find him today, but he couldn't. Until now. "I sold the sleigh," Charlie said, coming over to the Land Rover in a very sexy black peacoat that highlighted his broad shoulders, biceps and gorgeous face. Freddie noticed the 2 large brown takeaway coffee mugs, and he was really hoping this was going to lead somewhere. "Nice, how much?" "That isn't a very polite question. I thought florists were gentlemen," Charlie said, grinning and stepping a little closer. "I'm not always polite, you know," Freddie said, smiling as his wayward part sprung to life again. Sometimes Freddie swore that thing had a life of its own. Charlie stood even closer, and Freddie really liked feeling Charlie's warm, minty breath on his forehead. That's when he realized the sheer height difference, but he didn't mind. $100 grand, a person from Kensington was here, so thank you." Freddie shrugged. "For what?" "You know what," Charlie said, playfully knocking his shoulder as Charlie leant against the Land Rover too. "You saved my business. You gave me the inspiration and ideas to save everything I've worked for, so thank you." "You're welcome, but what are those?" Freddie asked, gesturing to the takeaway cups. Freddie took the cup as Charlie silently offered it to him, and he smelt it. It was Christmas in a cup, as far as he was concerned. It was warm mulled wine. The best Christmas drink ever. "I'm driving," Freddie said, "but I wouldn't mind seeing you again. We can talk more about our crafts, our techniques, and our visions. Maybe, or we could go out for dinner. I haven't eaten, and I know a great little cafe that's still open until 2 a.m. Even on Christmas Eve." "How's that possible?" Freddie asked, seriously, not understanding. He was about to judge the cafe for working on Christmas Eve, but then again, he had just made more money tonight than he normally did in autumn and winter combined. "It's a wonderful Turkish restaurant, and the owner doesn't celebrate Christmas, so he's still open. Care to join me?" Charlie asked, offering Freddie his hand. Freddie looked back at his Land Rover. Everything was inside. It was all locked up, and he did have to get up early tomorrow to see some of his friends before going to his parents for the Christmas feast. They always wanted him to bring someone too, and he wasn't sure what Charlie was up to tomorrow. Either way, it would be great for the nieces and nephews to stop focusing so much on him if there was a new person round. Especially someone as interesting, imaginative, and fun as Charlie. Only if you come to my family Christmas dinner tomorrow. Deal? I normally have the afternoon of Christmas Day free anyway, Charlie said. Freddie took Charlie's rough, warm hand in his, and they both went off into the Christmassy joy of Canterbury's cobblestone high street. The bright red, green, and golden Christmas lights illuminated them as they went. And for the rest of the night they laughed, talked, and passionately debated the best way to create stunning things. Freddie probably learnt more from that conversation than he had in months, and now he was even more excited for the future, his florist store and Christmas. It really was the best time of the year, filled with love, magic, and romance. What more could a guy ask for?
Welcome back everyone, it's me again, Connor Whiteley. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's story, because I flat out love writing, creating stories and sharing them with you. If you really enjoyed today's story, then please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithms. And if you want to buy this short story or any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get them from your local library if you requested, and you can order the paperback copies from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. Lastly, if you want to support the channel on a one-off basis, then you can now buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Connor Whiteley. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy today's story, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help us spread the word about the channel. So, thanks for watching the Whiteleyverse, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.